Hey, if you want to learn to code in a friendly community where we help each other improve, be sure to join Keen Coders Facebook group. Link in the description below. Hey guys, so today we're going to attempt to replicate the Google homepage. We're going to be doing this using HTML and CSS. We're not going to use any JavaScript to create the dynamic elements on the page. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make our file that we're going to use, our files we're going to use. So we have to create a directory first. So we can make a new directory, Google Home. And we want to create a few files. So the first file we're going to create is the HTML page. And we also need to create the CSS file. So now we have all the files we need. Now we're going to create the HTML boilerplate that we need to make our page. In Visual Studio Code, you can just type in exclamation mark and then click enter. That'll give you the basic boilerplate for the page. And now we want to link the HTML file with the CSS file. So you can just type that in, link HTML to CSS. And there should be a link here like this. You can put this in the head right here. Let's just create a heading just to test this. Let's open index.html, and here you go, we have the hello world. So we know that the CSS file and the HTML file are linked together. Let's attempt to replicate the Google page. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to replicate the navbar. Okay, so we can see we have a profile icon, an app icon, and some links. So let's try and copy the profile picture first. So we're going to use the inspect tool. You can get to the inspect tool by right-clicking and clicking on inspect. We're going to be using this a lot. So we can click the select element on the page. We can hover over the profile picture. And what do we see? We see there's a link tag with href. Okay. What else do we see? Span, and we see it has some content. So I'm guessing this content is the picture here. So we can copy this content and go back to our file and type in the image. Call it image CRC and link. See what that looks like. Now we have my profile picture here. But we want to wrap this in some divs, and we're going to use the BEM coding convention, naming convention, to create our class names. So we can do that like so, div class, and we're going to make this a block. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say block, you can go to my blog hassanarmstrong.com, and I have a post here called BEM CS naming for complete beginners, and this will explain to you what I mean by block and the rest of the conventions. So I'll be using this naming convention to name all my class names. So let's call this block Google Home. Google Home Nav. And let's make a container for everything. So let's call this div class. Let's just call it container. This is going to contain all my content that I need. Okay, so now we have the block. Now we have to give the element a name. So we take the block, so Google Home Nav, and then we do 2 underscores, then the name we see fit for this element here. So we can call this image or profile image. That's the name of my class. So now we're going to copy the styling for this element from Google. Go back to the Google homepage. And let's copy the profile icon styling. So it should be something like this. Go back here, copy this style again. Don't go through what each of these properties do. You can look that up, otherwise this video will take way too long. So let's go back to our file. So now we have our profile icon on our page, and it looks the same as the profile icon on the Google page. So now we have to add the apps icon. We can do that by going to material design, which is like a library for different icons, and searching for apps. And once we have our apps icon, we can download it like so, and we can get the vector. So we just copy and paste this element here. And we can paste this inside our file and go back to our website. And there we have our vector file. Now it is a different color on Google, so let's change it to the correct color. So it's using a different opacity, so we can just change the opacity. So let's give this a class. Google Home Nav. We can call this apps icon. And give this opacity 0.55. And then now it looks the same. Okay, so now let's add the images and Gmail links. So let's first observe how they look. Okay. They have a line height of 24px. And this is the color. Okay. Let's go back to our CSS file. Line height. Line height is like the distance between each line. How much does the line take up? How much space does it take up? So in this case, each line will have 24px. So let's create these elements. So let's just use tag. The first one is Gmail. And One is images. Both use a class. Gmail link. I think they're identical, we just give them the same class. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Okay, kind of similar, although the font size is a bit different. The font size is 13 pixels. Okay, let's change the font size. That's better. And let's see what the font family is. Okay, much better. And that's all for now. Okay, so now we want to place all these elements on this side. So we have to rearrange them a little bit because we can see that the profile icon is on the very right hand side. So this should ideally be at the bottom. So let's make the image at the bottom. Oh no, sorry, I think the image should be at the top. Okay, so now let's try. Let's use display, display flex, then flex direction or reverse, and let's align them, make them aligned in the center. So now it's kind of looking how we want it to look. Okay, that's great. So now we want to add some padding to separate these elements. So let's see how much padding is added to each of these on the Google page. So we see there's around 15 pixels of padding being added. Yeah, around 15 pixels. So there's 15 pixels of distance between each of these. And then there's 30 pixels added to the between the edge of the page and their profile icon. So let's attempt to replicate this. So because we want padding on the right and the left for the links and the apps icon, we can use this. So we can do 0 top, 15 right, 0 bottom, and 15 left. And the same for there's no need for this. I just realized there's no need for this. So do padding right, 15px, we'll be fine. Oops, what happened here? Okay, maybe this should be margin right instead of padding. Okay, and there's a little bit of extra padding added here. This should just be padding, right? Okay, that's perfect. Yep, looks very similar. Maybe with the switch Gmail images around. There you go. So now we have the nav for Google replicated. So now let's add the doodle, the Google Doodle, which they always change. We can do that by stealing this from Google. Just go to CRC here and take the GIF URL, and we can add this in our own site. So let's give this the class Google main content. That'll be the block element, and inside we'll have the other elements that we need. So the first one will be first inner block, Google main content, this image. Let's call it doodle. And don't forget that http google.com. Okay, let's see how this looks. So we have the doodle. Now we want to center this and push it further down the page. So let's see how far Google pushes the doodle down the page. So they're approximately margin top 83 pixels. Okay, so we can do that too. So let's center it first. Oops, wrong element. Now it's centered. Now we want to push it a little bit further from the top. So let's add this to our CSS. Okay, so now we have our doodle. Now we have to create our search box. This is the most trickiest part of the page, in my opinion. So let's give this a try. Let's first observe what we have in Google's search box. They have div, and inside that div is the icon, the search icon, and also the search input box where the user types in what they want to search. And they also have a little microphone here. So there's two icons we have to insert into this div as well as the input box. So let's give this a try. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a new div. Call it search. And inside is an icon and an input and another icon. So the first thing we should do is we should create the border for this search box and give it a border radius. So it looks kind of similar to this. So let's see what styling Google uses. So we have a border. Okay, so we can copy this. And also the width, 582 pixels. Google main content search. .584. So there you go. Now we have our input, our search box. Now let's add the icons that we need and the input. So this icon, search icon, it's also a vector image. So you can get this from material icons, I think. Let's type in search. There you go. Let's download this, open this up, and let's steal this element and paste this here. Okay, we have our search. Now we want to change the color, which is a bit tricky for vectors. So let's see what color Google uses. They use this color. And instead of defining, giving this a class, we can just define the fill. So we can give it a fill. So we got fill equal color. There you go. Now we wanted to bring it into the center of the search box. And they use margin auto. Okay, they use Flexbox. So let's try and use Flexbox ourselves. No. Okay, so we have to give it its own div if you want to do it this way. But I think there's possibly an easy way to do this. We can add some padding to the top. Let's just make it 10 pixels. Let's make it margin. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. If it's roughly the same, I think that's fine. I think that's okay. There you go. Okay, height and width 20 pixels. Let's give this a class. Search magnifying glass. Let's give it padding top, 12 pixels. That's better, and let's give it a bit of margin. Even padding is fine. Give it some padding of 10 pixels. Even 12 pixels will be okay. Okay, so now we have our search icon. Now we have to add our input box so that user can type in information into Google. So let's add our input box. Input type equals text. Let's give it a class. Head to our CSS file to use later on. And let's make its width 100%. Actually, we might need a little bit of extra space for the other icon, so let's make it 85%. We have space for the microphone icon. Yeah, that seems fine. So 85%. And let's also check what the font size is. Font 16 pixels, something, something, something. Okay. And we want to move this weird yellow border. So I think we'll do outline 0. Get rid of this. Yep. Now we got rid of the border. Now we're going to add the microphone icon. which we can do by taking this URL here. And let's add a new image. Let's see if this works. Okay, so now we have a microphone icon. Obviously, it's way too big, so let's make it a bit smaller. Height and width 24. Give this a class. Call it MIC, mic. And there you go. Okay, so it's not really aligned in the middle where we want it to be. So let's add some padding. Or even margin is fine. Margin left. Okay, I think that's fine. So margin, top 10, and right 10, then 0, 0. Left, top, right, bottom, left. There you go. So now we have our search box, which is great. So now let's build the buttons underneath the search box. So let's go to our index.html file. And same as before, it's just following a very similar structure. And hopefully you can see now how easy it is to know what each element does. So you can see each class name, you can decipher, okay, this is to do with the Doodle, Google Doodle, this is to do with the Google search, and this one, let's call it, this is to do with submit buttons. So let's call it submit buttons. You can see this how this naming convention can really help you, especially if you've got lots of elements, you can know which one belongs to which. So it's kind of useful. So let's create these buttons. So the first button I think was called Google search. The second one, I'm feeling lucky. Okay, so now we have these buttons here. So let's first style these buttons by copying the styling from Google. So please copy all of this. And they're looking very Google-ish. So let's center these buttons, which we can use by doing display flex. And then there should be some margin or something added to separate these buttons from the search section. So it's padding top 18 pixels. Oops. Oh, I forgot to add the flex. It's a really easy way to center things, so much easier than using other techniques. Okay, so now we have our buttons. Now let's add the translations section. So this is relatively easy. So let's try this. Translations. And let's give this a paragraph tag. Oh. And the first one was Ding Viet, or Vietnamese. So let's take this, add it in here, and then the same for French, and the same for Chinese, I think. Okay, let's give these classes. Actually, there's no need to give us these classes. We can just select them using this class. So let's take this. Let's see how much padding is applied by Google. 3 pixels. And the color, is that really the color? Quite strange. Oh, this is the color, right? Okay, well, this is the color, I guess. So let's use this color. And padding left, 3 pixels. Okay, we forgot to add this only to the A tags. Oh, but in CSS you can't do nesting. Okay, that makes sense. So we just have to give them each their own class. So let's screw this and let's give each one their own class. Um, now they have their own class, and that looks better. Not sure why that text is. Oh, I see. Option, option. Okay. Okay, there you go. So now we have the languages and we have the text. Although it still doesn't look the same, which is quite strange. So let's see what we're doing wrong. Possibly the font family. There's no mention of font size anywhere apart from here. Small. I guess we can try that. Font size small. And font family. Okay, that's better. Now let's align this because it's text. We can just align it using text align center. So let's take this class. And we can use text align center if the element is inside another element that is a block. In this case, it works because it's inside a block. And let's see how much margin is applied between these elements. I'll say it's typically roughly the same, so it's fine. And then let's make sure that this text is the right size. Font size small. Okay. I think it's fine. It's not exactly the same, but it'll do, I think. Maybe we can change the font size to something more smaller. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now let's work on the footer, which is the very last section we have to work on. Surprisingly, a little bit tricky because you can see we have two rows, one row here, one row here, and then we have like two separate columns. We have like text on the left-hand side and text on the right-hand side. So let's try and do this. So let's add a new section. So here we have, let's say we have the body, the nav. Let's wrap this in a nav tag. It indicates and that is the nav section. And this is useful for if you're working on production level code, useful for other developers who look at the code and they know, okay, this section is for the nav bar section. This section is the main section, let's call it. And the last section can be called the footer. And these are just primarily for other developers. This will affect any of the users. Okay, so now let's add the footer. Footer links, that'll be the block. And then inside we'll have two rows. Footer links row, first row. Second row. And in the second row we'll have two columns. First column. Second column. And inside the first column we'll have the location, which is Vietnam, where I'm currently in right now. Vietnam. And in the second row we'll have advertising, business about, and how search works. Advertising. I've got about. In the Bottom will have privacy terms and settings. Okay. Privacy terms and settings. Okay, so now we have the elements we need, the text we need. Let's see how this looks. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make this into 2 rows, which is already, but we want this to be in a row instead of a column. So we can do that like so. Display flex direction row. Okay. And then even for these ones, we do the same. Okay. And you notice these are this whole element, this whole footer link element is hovering just below here. We want this at the bottom, right? So we can use bottom 0, which 0px position fixed. Okay. So this will force the element to be at the bottom of the page. So let's add that now. 0 pixels and display fixed. Display flex. Oh, sorry, not display fixed, position fixed. Let's add display flex to all of these sections. And to each of the columns, add display flex too. Okay, we don't need display flex for this one. Okay, so now we want the first column to be on the left hand side and the rest of the items to be on the right hand side. So we can use for the row, we can use justify content space tween. Okay, so gonna work. Because the width has to be 100%. So we can add a width, 100%. 100%. Okay, there you go. That will work. Now we can see correctly that these texts are on the right hand side and these texts are on the left hand side. So now we want to add some space, some padding in between these texts. Let's copy this from Google. The space in between each one is 27. 27. Padding left 27. Okay. Each one of these classes, which is very monotonous, or repeat a lot, which isn't ideal, but you can use CSS, which is better, or SAS. So you can find that here. It compiles the CSS file using this, and you can nest your CSS styles, which is really convenient. Row text, yeah. Left 27 pixels. Okay, we need padding left 27 except for this element here. Or maybe actually including this element here. Okay, so then we should also add padding for this one too. Okay, that's better. Which adds some padding right for this element here. Second row text, last item. Padding right 27. Oh dear. So maybe for the second row, second column, we should add a padding right instead of padding left. Replace classes for all of these elements. Okay, there you go. And let's add the correct styling for the footer. So using this color. And the font size is 14 pixels. Okay. Okay, great. So now the last thing you have to do is just add the background and the borders. This element has border bottom. So this is the first row. And we also need to add the top border. Which is here, and we have to add the background color too. We can see there's a slight margin being added here, which we can remove. I think that's coming from the body. Let's see where this is coming from. Yes, it's coming from the body, so we can remove that by adding margin 0. There you go. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's the Google homepage done. Please let me know if you have any questions or queries. Please subscribe. I do have my blog if you want to check it out, hassanarmstrong.com. Yeah, I try to post as much as I can. I plan to post a lot more in the future, so please join and follow this blog. Also, I have a Facebook group called Keen Coders. If you feel to join this group, I will constantly be posting content on this group, and I hope to create a community of people who want to learn together and improve together. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Stay safe.